Hi, everyone. Good evening. I am January, Uplifters Community Building Officer. And for those who are joining us for the first time, we are Uplifters. And Uplifters is a nonprofit organization empowering underprivileged communities with online education and peer support. We offer a free online money management course for domestic workers. And just need to click send message on our Facebook page to enroll. This is the 19th episode of our Uplift Your Night Facebook Live series, and we are delighted to be here with you tonight. Our first objective with this Uplift Your Night Facebook Live is to be together. Uplifters is first and foremost a community. Secondly, we want to keep learning together and supporting each other. So let me introduce our topic for tonight. We'll be discussing what you need to know about to navigate the legal side of debt management. For tonight's topic, we will focus on Hong Kong, and we will cover the illegality of loans linked to agency fees and the common modus operandi used by employment agencies. So, talking about our guests for tonight, let's welcome Holly Carlos Allan to discuss this very interesting topic. Hi,
Hi,
Holly. Good evening. Welcome to our live broadcast.
hi, Jenny. It's a pleasure to join you tonight. I don't know whether this is being watched in other countries, so whether it's good morning for some or good afternoon for others. But anyway, it's a pleasure to join you. Thank you for inviting me.
And thank you for joining us tonight, Holly. And yeah, Holly is part of Uplifter's strategic advisory committee that works closely with our board of directors on strengthening our programs and impact. As the former executive director of Help for Domestic Workers, Holly led the organization to become one of the top NGOs in Hong Kong in the field of human rights advocacy, facilitating access to justice and empowering thousands of migrant domestic workers. She has co authored a handbook, produced literature, and developed online content on the rights of domestic workers. Holly has also worked with other NGOs in various capacities, including as a board member of Enreach HK, a lecturer at Empower You, and Access to Justice consultant for Pathfinders Hong Kong. Holly, feel free to share a bit more about yourself and your work before we share with the audience what we have on the menu for tonight.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Jenny. As you have mentioned, I used to be the director of Help for Domestic Workers. I left the organization in 2018, and since then, I've been, working with various organizations. At the moment, I'm advising also as a consultant, an independent contractor consultant, advising a new small startup NGO, also providing advice and assistance to migrant domestic workers and other underprivileged groups. Also, I am currently studying. I am about to complete a program in LLM in human rights at Hong Kong University. Um, yeah, so that's what I've been busy with
Mhm.
at the moment. And tonight we'll be discussing, as you have mentioned, uh, loan issues and the illegalities of loans, especially if it's in relation to employment agencies or employment agency fees. And hopefully we'll have an interesting discussion tonight.
Mhm. Wow, thank you so much again, Holly, for joining us tonight, and thank you for sharing that information. And it's very impressive.
My pleasure. Also, of course, a disclaimer first, no, siguro.
Mhm.
We're not, I'm not a lawyer, and so this discussion is based on what I learned about the laws in Hong Kong as director of Health for Domestic Workers, my experience in providing advice and assistance to market domestic workers.
Mhm.
So we're just providing information. We're not providing legal advice because we're not allowed to do that. So just to make it clear.
Mm-mm. Yeah, thank you. And yes, I think we can get started. But before we start, our discussion will be both. It will be in English and in Tagalog. Uh, Please feel free to ask your questions either in English or in Tagalog, whatever you're comfortable with. And yeah, our focus will be in Hong Kong. And yes, I can see some people joining us. Thank you. Please do not hesitate to comment to say that you are here. And yes, we'd love to hear your questions for Holly. For Holly. Yeah, so let's start with the illegality of loans linked to employment agencies. So many unscrupulous agencies charge excessive commission and even collude with lending companies to facilitate this. What should domestic workers who deal with this illegal practice do to protect their rights?
Well, of course, the very first thing that they need to do when, for example, applying for a job through an employment agency is to check whether that particular agency is licensed, right? In the Philippines, for example, no, they need to be licensed. In Hong Kong as well, they need to be licensed, but also not only licensed but accredited by in the Philippines by the POEA, or in Hong Kong by the Philippine consulate, right? Um, the consulate website, I believe, has a list of accredited employment agencies. If you're dealing with an agency, go to the website of the consulate, check whether, I guess in other countries as well, other overseas Filipino workers, you go to the website of the employment of the consulate and check the list of accredited employment agencies, and those are the ones you should deal with, because often some agencies would use or subcontract. Um, like an unlicensed agency or an accredited agency would use an agency that's accredited by the consulate, parang, and then they would collect illegal fees, and there's now question who's liable, whether it's the agency that actually charged you, or was it the agency that's accredited, on your contract, that's the agency accredited, even though that's not the agency that you dealt with. So sometimes they do this either to confuse you, or just to circumvent the law. So just be careful about choosing what agency you deal with, no? Also, of course, be aware of the agency regulations. What are the laws on yung mga batas, no? Regulating employment agencies in the Philippines. I'm sure most of you are aware it's illegal for an employment agency to charge any placement fee, right? Zero
Mhm.
placement fee tayo sa Philippines since 2016 pa yung batas na yan, ano?
Mhm.
In Hong Kong, the maximum fee that an agency can charge is 10% of the first month's salary. Okay, so at the moment, I believe the salary in Hong Kong is the minimum allowable wage is 4,630. So 10% of that is what, 463, right? So the maximum fee that an agency can charge in Hong Kong is 463 Hong Kong dollars, and they can only charge that after you have been placed and after you have received your first month's salary, not before, not, because often, kadalasan, di ba, okay, we'll talk in English and Tagalog na para mas madali para sa lahat. Um, Kadalasan, agencies would charge even before they find an employer for you, right? So with the down payment, you'll be asked to pay a down payment, and then they'll start finding a job for you. And once they have you sign a contract, there's another fee to be paid and all that. No, so that's illegal. No, you should only be charged after you've already been working for the employer and you have received your first month's salary. And that's the law in Hong Kong, no? And that's only 10%. After that, they're not allowed to charge any fee anymore. Also, um, they cannot link that with your ID, document. I mean, sometimes they would hold your ID, right? So they you apply for an ID card when you arrive in Hong Kong, and then the agency would hold that temporary ID, and they would say you're not, we're not going to give you until you have paid this 10%. So dapat hindi nakalink yan sa ID. That's a separate matter, no? Your ID is your ID, it's your personal document. No one has the right, or even your passport, no one has the right um,
Mhm.
to take possession of your personal documents apart from yourself. No? So another thing, so I mean, if the Philippine agency is not allowed to charge any placement fee, and in Hong Kong they can only charge 10% after you have received your salary. I mean, obviously you don't have to borrow money, right? There's no reason why you have to take out a loan to pay an agency fee, because it's illegal in the Philippines, and in Hong Kong,
Mhm.
it's only 10, and by the time you already receive your salary,
Mhm.
you're able to pay the fee, right? In the Philippines, there are, of course, the training fee, sometimes yung pamasahe mo to go back and forth to
Yeah.
even your home and the agency. Maybe you might need a little bit of money for that, but there's really no reason that you have to take out huge loan pay the agency because, as I've said. And also, the agency cannot or is not allowed to specify what training center you're supposed to go to, right? So you have to be able to choose which, to canvas around and ask around, which training center you can go to, then to charge them, a reasonable amount, not the ones specified by the agency, or even
Mm-hmm.
medical centers kung saan ka magpapacheck, no, to get your medical certificate. They should not specify. I mean, you should be free to go to an accredited or
Yeah.
legitimate or authorized or licensed medical practitioners to get your medical certificate, right? So those are the things that in Hong Kong, meron tayong tinatawag na code of practice, no, for employment agencies. No, when you approach an employment agency to find your job, they should draw up a what you call an agreement, a service agreement. And
Mm-hmm.
sa service agreement na yun, that you should both should sign, you and the employment agency, doon nakalagay what kind of service you're going to provide you and how much you're going to charge you. Dapat isulat doon. But the amount that they should write there, kung ano to charge nila, it should not be higher than the 10% uh,
Mm-hmm.
commission, right? So they're not also allowed to charge you, and let's say they might say we're just collecting for the employment agency in the Philippines. They're not allowed to do that. They should not be involved in your personal financial affairs. If you have a financial obligation elsewhere in the Philippines or elsewhere, the agency should not be involved in that. It's your own personal affair. They should not interfere, you know, or they should
Mm-hmm.
not make any deductions from your salary to pay another agency, for that matter. Okay, so they should not refer you to a lending company. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Right. So should avoid entering, if possible, avoid entering into loan agreement in connection with the payment of a placement fee. The agency should not refer you to any agents, to any loan company, to pay an agency fee. And of course, don't sign um, documents that you don't understand, or because sometimes ang modus operandi nila, no, is to they'll present to you a stack of documents, right? And they say, okay, sign here. No, they won't even allow you to read the documents. They'll just rush you into signing documents. So they create this sense of urgency na para silang lagi nagmamadali. Ikaw naman nape-pressure ka. O, sige, sign na nga. Then you just trust the agency, whatever they ask you to sign. You believe it's something to do with the processing of your contract or your visa. Yung pala, meron ng kasama dong document that, that that's it's a loan agreement, no. So make sure that when they ask you to sign documents, you know what you're signing, you have read it, you agree with it, um, and of course you should be given a copy of what you sign, right? You're entitled to a copy. If you're not given a copy, make sure before you sign you take a photo, but don't be forced into signing anything that you don't agree with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. um, and also it's important to document um, the process that you go through when you approach an agency to apply for a job.
Yeah.
Ano yung mga, what's the name of the agency, for example, no? The full name of hindi lang yung sometimes you just say, oh, Century Agency, no? Yung pala, it's Century Empower, there's so many names or limited, whatever. So dapat complete yun, alam mo, yung meron kang, uh, what you call this, business card, no? Kasi importante when you file a complaint, you know the full name. Because sometimes the name of the agency that's stamped on your contract is not the same agency that
Mm-hmm.
you've dealt with. So dapat alam mo yun. So when you file a complaint, alam mo kung sinong ituturo mo and what's the legal name of the agency. Also the name of the persons that you dealt with. Hindi lang yung si Ate Fe o si Kuya, si ganyan, ano? Kasi when you go to or when you file a complaint, hindi pwedeng incomplete yung document, yung information mo. Dapat buong pangalan, no? Um,
Mm-hmm.
like Holly Carlos Allan or whatever, generally, right?
Mm-hmm.
So dapat buo yung pangalan mo,
Complete
alam mo.
name.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so sino yung pinagbayaran mo? Who received the money? No? May iba bang nagpa-sign sa'yo? Anong pangalan ng nagpa-sign? Anong
Mm-hmm.
pangalan ng tumanggap ng pera? Anong pangalan ng nagsabi kung na dapat ka magbayad? So all those people involved sa lahat ng proseso dapat um, you should write down the names. How much did you pay and when did you pay, right? So yun, dapat detailed documentation, accurate documentation. Kasi when you file a complaint, all of these things will be asked, no? Kasi when you're asked for evidence to support your complaint, it's not just receipt. And often they won't give any receipt anyway. They won't issue a receipt for an illegal fee, di ba? So very rare na magkakaroon ka ng receipt. So all you probably have is, your statement.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you need to document the process kung sino, what, where, when, why, how, right? Ano yung circumstances? Sino dinala ka ba sa lending company o ikaw inutusan na magpunta sa lending company, right? Did they prepare the documents for the loan agreement and gave it to you to take to the lending company? Or when you went to the lending company, the lending company already knows, you're from this, they've already contacted us that you need to sign this,
Yeah.
so that you can prove that there's a collusion between the lending company and the employment agency. So importante talaga yung accurate documentation, journaling or diary, writing
Mm-hmm.
this diary. So para in the future, if you want to file a complaint, then you complete the information. It's
Yeah.
easier, it's more credible, right? Hindi yung,
Mm-hmm.
kasi, when I used to provide assistance, no? We used to provide assistance to people who've been overcharged. And of course, hihingin namin yung mga details, no? We'll interview them, and then they'll say, oh, there's a woman that I spoke with. I don't know her name, and I can't remember the date. And I think I paid
Mm-hmm.
this amount, but then you can. You should this standard. When you make a payment, what is the purpose of that payment? Is that for a medical fee, or is that for training, or whatever? So dapat naka-itemize yan, whatever you're paying and to whom you're paying. Right? So those are some of the important things that need to be remembered. Yeah. Ang dami ko.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a lot of helpful information. If I may recap some of it, I will try. Uh, yeah, yeah. First of all, do not get into any agreement. Hindi lahat malinaw. Make sure that everything's clear, and importante yung documentation, yung who, what, where, why, lahat. The full name of the agency, the person that you're dealing with, the full name, and the purpose of the payment. And I think you said you mentioned about uh, the
Finances,
Hong Kong.
who brought you, yeah,
Yeah, who brought you?
wherever, whether it's in the Philippines or Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one thing. There's one thing I forgot. So sometimes they ask workers to sign documents that are incomplete. No. So let's say it's a loan document, pro forma loan document. No, nandun na yung pangalan ng, let's say, kung ano yung normal na nakasulat sa mga loan document. Pero wala yung amount, no, ng loan. I don't know, maybe the interest rate is not yet filled in, or there's no date. There's no. So incomplete. So they, after you sign, they can write anything na hindi ka, that you don't agree with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're compelled to sign something, but of course it's advisable not to enter into loan again. But if you're compelled to sign anything, make sure na yung sasignan mo, kumpleto yung information, no? Hindi yung maraming butas bago ka mag-sign, no? It's the same with sometimes when they apply for a job. So the agency might ask them to sign a contract, an employment
Yeah.
contract. Often yung contract wala pa yung pangalan ng amo, wala pa yung address, you don't know who you're working. I mean, basta pagsasignan ka na lang ng contract, right? So it shouldn't be you shouldn't sign anything na incomplete. No, dapat nandun na yung mga terms of the
Mm-hmm.
contract or terms of the agreement before you sign it.
Wow, that happens.
Yeah.
The names of the employers are not there. Wow.
Yes. Kasi hindi
Wow.
pa nakakahanap ng employer, no? Kasi
Mm-hmm.
once they go to the agency, they're just applying, and the agency, okay, here's the contract, just sign it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then, when we find employer, we'll ask employer to sign, right? So ibig sabihin, wala pang employer magsasign ka na ng contract kasi parang in advance, in anticipation, para sa kanila madali na, parang gano'n, no? So, but it's,
Yeah.
a contract should be, any document that you sign, it should be complete, pa.
Yeah, and you shouldn't feel forced to sign anything na hindi pa malinaw lahat, or the details are incomplete. The
Don't be
information.
afraid to ask questions. Yeah. Kasi kung minsan takot na takot sila kasi parang they think na they're at the mercy of the agency, di ba? No, no, because you remember you are a customer, di ba? When you approach an agency, you're a customer and customers all I mean, kasabihan natin na customers always
Mm-mm.
right, right?
Customer's always right.
Of course, yeah, but they should be servicing you
Mm-hmm.
and in providing good service because they're being paid to do that. Maybe not by you, but by the employer. But you're still a customer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because without you, they don't have a business, right? So they should be providing, proper services. You should not be at their mercy.
Yes, and you said that it's important to first to check if the agency you're dealing with is accredited by Polo, and yeah, and be aware of recruitment regulations, ethical practices.
Mhm.
So yeah, that is very important. And in Hong Kong, if I may just show it again, the commission should be must not exceed 10% of the first month's wages.
Mm.
Hmm. And you also said something about the service agreement.
Yeah, so meron ng ano ngayon kasi that's part of the code of practice for employment agencies in Hong Kong, no?
Mm-hmm.
That they're required to draw up a service agreement between the agency and the job applicant, no? So dapat nakalagay doon how much is the agency charging or yeah, so how much is the agency charging and what services the agency is providing to the worker, no? Is it just finding an employer? Does it include processing the contract with the consulate and with the immigration and all that? No, so dapat kompleto.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, thank you so much, Holly. And yeah, I'm just going to show some of our viewers. Yeah, hi, Eileen May and Nancy. Good evening. And uh, hi, Ria, watching from Singapore. Bernadette. Good evening, Herlene.
Hi, Helene.
And
Veronica.
hi, Veronica. And hi, Julie. This is Julie, or one of our Diamond team leaders.
Oh,
Yes, and one of our gold team leaders, Nida, and oh, so from
oh.
for help from you way back year 2016. Thank you, and may God bless you always. Wow.
Yeah, Alan May. Hi.
Yeah, Eileen, she's one of our gold team leaders, and she recently launched a book called Beyond the
Really?
Sunset. Yeah,
Sorry, what's the title?
Beyond the Sunset.
Beyond the
Um,
Sunset.
yes,
Wow.
it was launched at
Galing.
HKU just, I think, last month.
Galing.
Oh, this month, sorry. Yeah.
What is it about?
Maraming talented na writers,
Yeah.
updaters. Yeah.
Hmm. I'd
So,
like to have a I'd like to have a signed copy of that.
yeah, she's also founder of Migrant Writers of Hong Kong.
Ah,
So, thank
wow.
you, Eileen.
Hmm.
Good evening, Anne. And hi, Janet. Sabina. Hi, Rosemary.
Is Pina from Indonesia or from the Philippines? She
Um,
sounds Indonesian, no?
yeah, yeah. From I think not so sure if she's based in Singapore.
Mm.
And hi, Lizelle, Margot, and oh, from Michelle.
Oh, my audio is not clear.
Let's check. Thank you for that, Michelle. I think I can.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Is it
Then
louder now?
Chinita. Good evening, Miss Holly. Yeah, it's all good.
Is it getting louder? Okay.
That yes, and yeah, everyone. to those of you who are joining us, please feel free to send your questions in the comments.
My audio now is not clear.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I think
Maybe I should. Okay. I don't know. Is it clearer if I do this? Is it
yes,
clearer? Is it better?
yes, that's better.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Let me know if this is better, ha? Sa ating mga audience, let me know
Yeah,
kung
Michelle.
mas malinaw na ngayon. Mas malinaw ba?
And a pleasant evening. Hi, Joe. Hi, Bernadette.
Hello, Bernadette.
So yeah, let's continue with our with our discussion. Yeah, so everyone, please ask your questions about loans that link to employment agencies, how to deal with them, how to spot illegal practices that are related to this, and you can ask your questions in English or in Tagalog, whatever you prefer. So yes, and even after this live, please send your questions and we'll do our best to reply to them. Okay, so let's continue with our discussion. And my next question would be about for domestic workers who are dealing with this or who find themselves dealing with this illegal practices. S- Can they challenge the validity of the loan agreement and recover the fees charged to them?
Okay, that's a very good question, no? Uh, I mentioned earlier what you need to do not to protect your rights, like all this documentation and making sure you know the names of the people you deal with and names of the agency. So those are all important, no, if you want to challenge the validity of the loan. I mean, it is possible to challenge the validity of the loan depending on the nature of the loan, depending on the circumstances of how it was taken out or how you entered into the loan agreement, no. um, who, for example, the questions to ask is who arranged the loan. Okay, was it the agency that arranged the loan and told you to sign the loan agreement? Did you receive any money from the loan company, or did the money go directly to the employment agency, right? um, were you told ano yung purpose ng loan? Was it you know uh, did you use part of the money from the loan of the loan proceeds, or was it all given to the agency? So all these things, will be relevant to question or challenge the validity of the loan. Kasi kung minsan, no, there are cases where um, you didn't you didn't even know you signed a loan agreement, right? So there
Mhm.
walang consent, right? So as I mentioned
Mhm.
earlier, sometimes the agency would just ask the worker to sign a stack of documents without explaining what they are, or without giving
Mhm.
opportunity for them to read the document. So yung pala, they've already entered the loan
Yeah.
without knowing it, no? So all these things are relevant to answer the question whether you can challenge the validity of the loan or not. And if there's consent, even if you know what you're signing, if you were compelled or pressured, or you signed under duress, and of course the purpose of the loan is to pay an illegal fee, then yes, you can challenge the validity of the loan. And especially if you didn't actually receive the money because the money was paid direct. Because may mga cases na, for example, the agency, when the worker arrived in Hong Kong, the agency, the first thing they do is to take the worker to the lending company.
Mhm.
Babantayan nila, arrange na yung mga loan documents to sign, and then they leave without, or sometimes they give a check to the worker, no. Syempre nakapangalan, so may paper trail nakapangalan sa worker yung check, and then the agency would take the worker to the bank to cash the check, and then require the worker to give the cash to
Mhm.
the agent, no. So on paper lahat, no, the worker enter into this loan agreement and then she received the money, but then in reality all the money went to the agency, for an illegal fee, no. So
Mhm.
so merong meron sigurong sometimes merong element of deception, no? And then they hold the passport until the fees paid, or hold their ID card, whatever personal document, and sometimes they're told that they can't leave the job without, unless they have fully paid the loan. So yan, may mga, sometimes it can even be characterized as debt bondage or forced labor, especially if you can't leave your job unless you fully pay the loan, then that could be debt bondage and forced labor. So these are the things that are relevant, no? And again, it's important to document the details of the process that you go through, where, when, why, what, how, yun ang lagi natin sinasabi, no? Make sure that you have all those things. Now, sometimes, the question also is, who is enforcing the loan? Kanino ka nagbabayad? Sometimes when you arrive in Hong Kong, you're just given a payment instruction that every month on the 15th of each month you have to go to 7-Eleven, make payment, right? And you say, why? I mean, or maybe you'll just say, okay, I've been told in the Philippines I have to pay a placement fee, and I have to go to 7-Eleven. This is probably it, no? Without knowing that it's actually illegal, no? So you think it's a legitimate instruction, or na
Mhm.
okay lang na pagbayaran ka, but in reality, it's illegal, no? Um, and so again, you could challenge that. And if you receive a payment demand from a loan company, you can actually, and if you don't remember signing any loan agreement, you can actually demand a copy of the loan agreement that you signed. Say, if I have entered into loan agreement, please prove it. Give me a copy of the loan agreement, right? If they cannot give you a copy of the loan agreement, then they cannot enforce the loan, right? You can say, I'm not going to pay make any payment because I didn't enter into a loan contract with you, and therefore I'm not going to pay. No, you can ignore the payment demand, or file a complaint, right?
Mhm.
Um, Another thing is, if you've already made the payment, you think it's a legitimate instruction to pay, um, or maybe the money has been deducted from your salary every month. Because sometimes agencies would enlist the help of the employer, no? And i-deduct na yung payment from the salary, so that when you receive your salary, the payment for the loan or agency fee has already been deducted. Sometimes the employer is instructed by the agency to send a check to the agency, or make you open an account, no? And but they actually control the account, so that
Mhm.
receive your salary, it's just a portion of the amount that you should be receiving, kasi na-deduct na nila yung agency fee, no?
Mhm.
That happens, you can actually file a complaint with is number one, EAA. No? EAA is Employment Agency Administrations.
Yep.
That's a body. It's a labor department agency that
Mhm.
regulates agencies in Hong Kong, right? Sila yung investigate if there's a violation of the employment agency's regulation. So you can file a complaint there. They will not help you get back your money, but they will put, the investigation itself will put pressure on the agency to return your
Mhm.
money. But if you decide to file a complaint, it should be done within 1 year of the offense. Ibig sabihin, kung yung huling pagbabayad mo, dapat within 1 year of that date, makapag-file ka na ng complaint, kasi they can only investigate within 1 year of the offense. No? Pangalawa, you can also go to as I mentioned, the EAA would only investigate, but to get your money back, you have to go to the small claims tribunal. If di makikipag-settle yung agency directly, right? Because you can also go to the Philippine consulate, right, the Polo, because they
Mhm.
sometimes conduct a conciliation meeting, no? They would schedule a conciliation. We call the agency in Hong Kong and say on this date you have to meet with the worker, and there'll be conciliation meeting. And then you can negotiate with the agency, no, to return the money if you've already paid, or cancel the loan, no. If there's no settlement, um, by the way, when it comes to negotiation, um, kailangan you should negotiate from position of strength. No, you're not at the mercy of the agency, right? Sometimes they will say, "Oh, we helped. Tinulungan ka namin dito, binigyan ka namin job. Of course, we should charge. But if you know your rights, then you can say, well, yeah, you recruited me and provided me a job, but you were paid to do that by the
Mm-hmm.
employer, and you're not allowed to charge me any placement fee, right? And if they say, okay, we will cancel the rest of the loan, but if you paid, or you've already paid, half of the loan or almost fully paid the loan, then they shouldn't just cancel the rest of the loan. They should return the money they've already paid, no? Because they're not they make you feel that they're doing you a benefit, no? By canceling the rest of the loan. But in fact, of course, they should cancel the loan because if you didn't really borrow money, it's not your loan and it's illegal. Then they should not only cancel the loan, but return the money that you already paid, right? So, but if there's no settlement, then you can go if the money was paid in Hong Kong, if you dealt with a Hong Kong agency, and it wasn't arranged in the Philippines, then you can go to the Small Claims Tribunal of Hong Kong, right, to file a claim. So it's a court, it's a real court.
Sorry,
The court,
what is it again, Holly?
the
What's the name?
Small
Oh,
Claims
okay.
Tribunal, right?
Okay.
But they're only open on weekdays. You can't
Mhm.
go on Sundays because the government offices are not open on Sundays. So you have to make sure that you can maybe ask your employer for permission to go out on a weekday to file a claim. It's always difficult because sometimes the agency and the employer might, you know be in cahoots, no?
Mhm.
Not all, but sometimes, because some employers not aware of the illegalities of the practices of employment agencies. So that's one way. You can file a complaint to the EAA, Employment Agency Administration, or no, not or, but and you can do both. No,
Mhm.
also file a complaint to the Polo or the OWA, I think the Polo, and then you can also file a claim with the Small Claims Tribunal if you've already if you've already made payments. No, so again, if you're going to go to court, make sure that you have enough evidence. When we talk about evidence, it's not just receipt, because it's very rare for employment agencies to issue receipts for illegal fees. Kasi kung alam nilang illegal, di sila magbibigay ng receipt because they know you can use it against them, right? So walang magbibigay ng receipt for illegal fees, right? It's very, very rare. When we talk about evidence, it's not just receipt. It could be your statement is an evidence, or text messages from agency, it can be evidence, or if you have a witness, if you're compelled to make payment, for example, in Hong Kong, you can maybe take your friend with you as a witness na nagbabayad. If you don't have any choice, no, I mean, of course, the um, the advice is not to make illegal payment, right? But if you think like you're going to lose your job and you feel like you don't have any choice, at least, you know gather evidence, or make sure you have evidence, like maybe make a photo of
Mhm.
payments through, or video, or take a friend with you as witness, right? So that,
Mhm.
if someday you want to file a claim, then you have evidence.
Yeah,
Yeah, those are
because they will not issue a receipt because they know it's
they don't
illegal.
it's illegal. Yeah, I mean, they might issue receipt for
Naman.
300, for the maximum fee of 10%, when in fact you actually paid, more than that, because they
Mhm.
know it's illegal. They only issue the receipt for the maximum fee. Or sometimes, even if you pay, um, let's say you pay for the processing fee, they would issue receipt for the amount that you paid, but in the name of the employer, right? um, which of course is again wrong, because if you were the one who made the payment, the receipt should be in your name. But of course, they're avoiding any evidence that could be used against them. So yun ang some of the things that I mean, I think they would already answered some of
Yeah.
the
So yung evidence is photos, text messages, videos, or if you have a friend,
yeah,
pwedeng
yeah,
mag-witness.
witness,
Mhm.
yes, all these things,
Yeah.
phone conversations, um, yes, anything that you could use to prove that you, and also your diary, but I mean, when you say diary, you should the diary the diary. it's important that you're writing your notes as
Mm-hmm.
they happen, not after one, just trying to recall what happened on that day, and now, now you're writing it, no. I mean, that's a statement, but if you're documenting what happened, it's better to do it
Mm-hmm.
as it happened, as they, if you paid today, make sure you, or yesterday, make sure you write it today, right? So
I see. So if your diary, if the entry in your diary was it happened a month ago, will it still be valid or?
I mean, it's just that it's more credible if
Mhm.
it's actually, you're writing it as they, because if a diary is normally you write it, what happened today,
Mhm.
you write it down, right? So not because your memory might not be as good. I
Yeah.
mean, um, yeah, you might forget details and all that. So it's better to write down details when it
Yeah,
happened.
that's a great practice. And yes, we have one comment from Michelle. So she says, this happened to one of my friends way back. She didn't sign any loan, but she's paying that loan monthly for 9 months. Thanks for spreading this awareness, Miss Holly.
Yeah, so yes, it's very, very common. I don't know if it's still common now, but
Mm-hmm.
it's very, very common then when I was at health. And I think, I remember there's always a long queue outside the office of people who are trying to, recover money they paid to the employment agency. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And yes, my next question would be about the modus operandi that are
Mhm.
commonly used by employment agencies, and how
Yeah.
should workers deal with them? I think
I
it's
mean,
related to
yeah.
yeah.
The modus operandi, I think, as we have already
Mm-hmm.
probably have covered it earlier, but I can just repeat them. No? Yung modus operandi will be the collusion between um, the employment agency and, and the loan company. No? Sometimes there'll be bogus loan agreement. It could be a legit, not legitimate, but it could be an actual loan contract
Mm-hmm.
issued by the lending company, or it could be a bogus loan agreement, right? Na akala mo may loan ka, but if you didn't receive any money, you just being made to sign some document and making you believe that you have this loan, um,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can cover up the payment cover up the payment of an illegal fee. Then you can say that's a bogus loan agreement, and you can just challenge that. No? Um, Either I don't know if I mentioned pala earlier about these um, post-dated checks that some people are required to sign in the Philippines. Did I
No,
mention that one? Oh, yeah.
not yet.
Okay. So there's this particular, probably one or two lending companies in the Philippines, no, um, that agencies work with. So when pupunta sila dito sa lending company to, the lending company would require the borrower, let's say borrower, not only to bring a co-maker, they call them co-maker, parang guarantor, no? Co-maker,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a relative or a friend.
Yeah.
Meron pa silang requirement na if you're going to bring a co-maker, it should not be a police officer, it should be a civil war, because they know they'll get in trouble, right? So anyway, so meron kailangan na co-maker who will co-sign the loan agreement. Kasi if the borrower is not able to pay, then that co-borrower, that co-maker, whether it's a friend or a relative, would be harassed to make the payment. No,
Mm-hmm.
but also they would be required to open a bank account, a checking account. No, and then the bank would issue a checkbook, and then itong borrower, both the borrower, the co-borrower, the worker and co-borrower would go back to the lending company with this checkbook, and then they would be required to sign several checks, and often they're blank checks. No, let's say the loan is payable in 10 installment, right? And then they'll be made to sign sometimes more than 10 checks, and sometimes walang nakalagay doon na amount. No, if it's a
Mm-hmm.
blank check, like there's no date, there's no amount, just you just issue them probably 15 checks, and they can actually write any amount there. It's very dangerous. I'm sure you know, no? It's very dangerous to sign a bank
Mhm.
check, no?
Yeah.
Tapos sa Pilipinas kasi, meron tayo, kasi yun ang gagamitin nila to cover, to make sure that you pay the loan, right? Kasi kapag
Thank you.
nag-issue ka ng check sa Pilipinas, meron tayong anti-bouncing check law, right? Na kapag nag-issue ka ng check and walang pondo, kasi
Mhm.
you're required to deposit money into that bank account so that the the loan company who's holding the checks that you have signed will go to the bank and cash the check. Now, if you didn't deposit money into the bank account, then tatalbog yung check, di ba? It will bounce,
Mhm.
the check will bounce.
Yeah.
And then that's estafa in the Philippines. Then you can be prosecuted for that, no? And that's how they
Mhm.
force these borrowers to pay by forcing them, making them sign these checks, right? Um, and then yung panakot nila, if you don't deposit money into that account, or if you don't make monthly payment, then you can be prosecuted for, or you can be arrested for, violating this anti-bouncing check law. That's how that's one of the modus operandi sa
Oh no.
Pilipinas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another modus operandi, of course, is they just enlist the support of the employer to make the deduction from the salary, right? And they open
Mhm.
a bank account in Hong Kong.
But
They hold the ATM card because they use the address of the agency, and they receive the all the documentation like the
mhm.
ATM card, call it password, not the password, PIN number, or the PIN
Mhm.
number. So they're the ones who control the account. So akala mo in paper is paper, the employee is depositing the full amount of salary into the account. So on paper, they're being paid in full, but in fact, it's the agency that withdraws the money, and then will just pay part of the salary to the worker, but make them either make them sign a receipt for full salary, or yung mismong pag-deposit sa account ang record nila, proof nila that the worker was paid in full, but in fact, she was, you know, effectively being underpaid because of the deductions. No?
Mhm.
And then they retain the passport, they retain personal documents to force them to pay. So those are some of the um, modus operandi being used by collude, how they collude, the agency and the lending company. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. We have a. I think we have a question about if uh, the passport, yung retention ng passport ng employer, what should she do if she finds herself in that situation?
by by
Yung
the employer, or by the agency.
by the agency. Yeah,
By the
sorry.
agency.
But,
Okay.
yeah, by
I
the
mean,
agency.
actually, it doesn't matter, no, whether it's employer or the agency, that they don't have a right to hold your passport, diba?
Mm, yeah.
But you can demand a copy. Sometimes kasi agency require them to sign that they agree, right? They agree
Mhm.
to um, for the agency to hold their passport. Tapos sabihin lang for safekeeping daw, no? But once you demand the return of your passport, kahit pa nag-sign ka ng, that you consent for the agency to keep it for safekeeping, once you demand the return, they should return it to you, no?
Yeah.
So maybe what you can do is write a letter to the agency para, again, documentation yan, no? Write a letter to the agency that you are demanding the return of your passport, and then copy furnished the consulate, right? Kasi ang consulate nag-i-issue ng pag-aari actually yan ng gobyerno, no? Yung
Mhm.
passport, no? So you're writing a letter to the agent saying, on such and such date, uh, you took my passport and has been retaining it since. I now want it back. Please return it to me as soon as possible, no later than, for example, give a particular date. Otherwise, I'll be, forced to file a complaint with the police, right?
Mhm.
Kasi again, pwede mong sabihin na theft na yan pag, if they refuse to return it to you, no? So, ganon, you can write a letter, copy furnish the, by the way, when you write a letter and send it to someone, you always keep a copy for yourself, no? Kasi yun ang evidence mo, or para
Mhm.
matandaan mo na isulat mo, no?
Yeah.
Especially if you're furnishing a copy to another party like the consulate, right?
Mhm.
And then if you want to file a complaint to the police, then you can show a copy of the letter that you sent. See, I've sent the letter to the agency for them to return my passport. They have refused, no? So then you
Mhm.
show a copy of that letter, right? So that's one way to, try and recover your passport. If they refuse, you can go to the police and file a complaint.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and another question. It's not related. It's not related to, yeah, to illegal to illegal loans, but if the employment agency in the Philippines refers her to the medical clinics, like other that charge excessive fees, how to handle that? How should
Yeah, I
she?
mean, you can tell the agency, I you know I want to go. Can I go to another
Mm,
uh, accredited medical, health or whatever laboratory or doctor
mhm,
or hospital to get my medical certificate, because this is too expensive. There are other reasonably priced, services, so you can actually tell them that. And kasi ang importante, you have to make them aware that you are aware of your right. Kasi kung alam nila na alam mo yung batas, then they will, mag-iingat sila na pilitin ka na magbayad ng sobra, or you know um pero kung alam nila na kaya ka nilang lokohin dahil di mo naman alam ang karapatan mo, igigit nila yon, tatakutin ka nila, no? So you have to, again, confidently assert your right, try to assert your right. Of course, maaaring sabihin ng iba, kasi lahat naman ng agency ganyan, or
mhm,
I can't find a job if I don't pay, blah blah blah, no? I mean, um, kasi kung ganun ang thinking natin, then parang mape-perpetuate lang yan, ano? Actually, there
mhm.
are some agencies that charge reasonably. Like, for example, fair employment. I don't know if you have heard of fair employment,
Yeah,
or
fair.
standard,
Yeah.
the fair
Mm,
employment. Hindi sila nag-charge ng fee. Actually, zero fee sila sa Pilipinas, no?
yeah.
Um, and even here in Hong Kong. So if you just go to them and deal with ethical employment agencies, then we don't have that problem.
Yeah, deal with ethical recruitment agencies, and yes, of course, always check if they are.
Accredited, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, even if they're accredited, sometimes, no, not
yeah.
all. Actually, a lot of accredited agencies are also, operating unethically and
Mm,
charging illegal fees, no. Um,
mm.
but it's easier to complain against them if they're accredited.
Yes, and yes, and speaking of fair, next week we'll have a Facebook Live episode with them, and we'll cover the updates on hiring
Oh, cool.
under COVID-19.
Yeah,
Yes, so
that should be
yeah, we have
interesting.
one more. This is very interesting from Irma. Yeah,
Mm.
the agency modus operandi requiring the domestic worker to take out loan either in the Philippines or on arrival in Hong Kong. Domestic worker is rarely given opportunity to read and is not given a copy of what she signed, or may not receive any money from the moneylender, and is given a payment instruction to pay monthly installments, usually through 7-Eleven, and requiring the domestic worker to sign a bogus loan agreement.
Mm. Sorry, is that a question, or that's?
I think she, it's not a question, but
It's
yeah,
actually those are the
she,
ones that we said, no, that are
yeah,
the most operandi of the
she made a
agency.
summary of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, it's usually through 7-Eleven, no? Uh, I mean, they make it very easy, no? Kasi convenient yung pagpupunta ka lang sa 7-Eleven, right? So, um, uh, sometimes, when you file a complaint, for example, success, or file a claims as a small claims tribunal
Mhm.
against the agency, and then you produce these copies of the receipts sa 7-Eleven. Minsan nabubura na yan kasi madaling mabura yung mga 7-Eleven receipt,
Oh,
no? So
yeah.
you have to make copies of that. But also,
Mm,
they'll say, well, these are not payment to the agency, these are payment to 7-Eleven, to loan company. So how can you prove that the payment was for agency fee, no? So sometimes it's difficult to link the payment to the loan company as payment to the agency, as because they will always say, oh, it's your personal loan, we don't have anything to do with that, yun
mhm.
lagi nilang justification or excuse or alibi, no? So that's why again, documentation, who sent you to the agents, who arranged, who said what, meron pang mga text messages dyan na nagsasabi sa iyo na pumunta ka sa loan company, no?
Mhm.
Importante yun kasi kung minsan mahirap i-link yung loan sa agency fee dahil madalas yan walang paper trail, right?
Mhm.
Just paying to the lending company, it's easy for the agents to say, we have nothing to do with that, it's your personal loan, right? So try and get evidence that the loan is connected to the agency fee.
Mhm. Yeah, document everything.
Mm.
Yeah. And we have a comment from Lawrence. Good evening, Uplifters community, and to generally to our guest, Holly Carlos Allan. Thank you, ma'am. Nice topic.
Thank you. I'm glad you find it interesting. It's a very common issue, right?
Yes.
So
It
yung
is.
mga merong naka-experience dyan na recently
Mhm.
lang, can you share? Can anyone share yung mga recent? Kasi itong experience ko na matagal, ilang years na, no?
Mhm.
Most recently until I think probably 2019. Yan ang kasi kung minsan may mga grupo na pare-pare. Oh, by the way, no, itong agency fees na to, hindi lang to for jobs in Hong Kong kasi marami na ngayon, di ba? I mean, in recent years na naghahanap ng trabaho sa Canada,
Mm-mm.
and they would approach agencies in Hong Kong that would promise them high-paying jobs in Canada or in other countries, whether it's
Yeah.
Russia or and then, isang taon na silang naghihintay kung minsan, ang laki, they charge really a large amount of money, like up to
Mm-hmm.
30,000, 40,000, 50,000 Hong Kong dollars, right?
Yeah.
Um, I've dealt with like groups of people actually na lahat sila like 10s, 20s na nagbayad ng ganong kalaki sa agents. The agents just keep promising, oh, next
Mm-hmm.
month or next, whatever. And they just keep waiting until, you know, mapuno na sila and then they try to get their money back. Ayaw nang ibalik ng agency and they'll say, okay, we'll just give you a job in Turkey. Ibahin naman nila yung country, no? Kasi sabihin
Mm-mm.
kasi nag-close yung yung demand sa wala nang demand sa Canada dito naman sa Turkey. But then they'll ask for more money, no?
But
So itong pinag-usapan natin, applicable din to. They only again
mm,
if you apply through an agency in Hong Kong, kahit pa sa ibang country yan, agencies in Hong Kong are covered by the same regulation. They can only charge 10% of the first month's salary. So magkano ba yung salary dun sa country na yon? Na pinapromise sa'yo. And they cannot charge you before you even start working, right? So they cannot charge those big amounts. So tapos marami silang sinasabi nyo, pambayad sa ganito, pambayad sa ticket or whatever, but the employer should pay for the ticket, right? So,
mm,
legal din yon. So, if mag-ingat sa mga ganyan. Sometimes they're actually scams, no? Na pagdating mo doon, wala pa lang trabaho. Um, ikaw pa yung maghahanap, no? And then sometimes illegal pala yung status mo doon. Hindi working visa, kundi visitor's visa ang binigay sa'yo, no? I mean, maraming ganyang scams ngayon. So, dapat mag-ingat.
So what should they do to make sure that it's not illegal? Like
Oo, mahirap na. I mean, sometimes meron pa nga sila na, okay, I mean, they would deploy probably a couple of people para meron silang example na, oh, kakilala ko nakapunta, nakahanap ng job. So maybe
mm,
they'll send, the first two people will get jobs, and they'll be legitimate visa para
mm,
meron silang pang-akit, no? Ikaw naman maaakit ka. Yung pala yung mga sumunod puro fake na, no? Ganon. So, it's really difficult. It's just due diligence. Kailangan ng due diligence, yung background ng agency. But
mm,
also, if they charge you that amount of money, that means they're violating the law. You shouldn't be paying more than 10% of the first month's salary. And most of the fees and expenses should be paid by the employer.
even employer.
Yes.
Mm,
So, um, pag ganyang kalaki, that means often scam. Yes.
scam siya. Yes. And yes, to everyone who's watching us, please share your experiences in the comments. Yes, we'd like to hear from you. And yes, we have more people joining us. Thank you so much. We have Liz. Good evening. Holly. Good evening, Liz. And
Hi, Liz.
hi, Dana. Good evening. And yes, we have
Impen.
Ben.
Good evening, Impen. It's a nice name.
Yes, and another comment from Irma. She says that third country deployment is illegal.
There you go. Mm. I mean, deployment is not illegal. Country deployment is not illegal per se.
Mhm.
It's the charging. Sometimes if it's and also you should check with the consulate kung meron ba talagang demand, nagde-deploy ba tayo ng workers doon, Filipino workers to country na yun. Kasi kung minsan may arrangement yan with the, with the consulate do sa country na yun, no? Or with whether it's PUEA, pero mga arrangement yan, no? So, you should check whether meron ngang demand sa country na yun. And if you are, if it's legal for you to work in that country, whether as a domestic worker or other jobs, right? Um, yeah,
Mhm.
so it's not always illegal. It's just sometimes the process uh, followed by the agency is illegal, especially
Yeah.
if they're charging illegal fee or excessive fees.
Mhm. Okay. So yes, we've covered a lot, and thank you so much, Holly. And yes, we will make a recap of this in our Facebook page. Yes, please stay tuned for that. And we have is there any last words of advice or that you want to share with our community?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, maybe to recap is you need to know your rights, right? If you know your rights, it's half the battle won, right?
Yeah.
And then you can also confidently assert it. If you know your rights, you can stand
Mm.
up to whatever the agency or to the loan company and assert your right. You can demand a copy of the loan agreement. You can say, I'm not going to pay that because it's illegal, if you actually know your rights, right? So those are the important things. Again, documentation is important. And accurate documentation, names, details of events,
Mhm.
dates, places. These are all important circumstances. You remember the what, where, when, why, how. Okay, maintain accurate records. That's very important.
Yes, so just going to show it here. Yeah, know your rights and accurate documentation, and yeah, maintain accurate records. But yeah, just and assert yourself. Yeah, be confident if you feel something's not very clear, something's wrong. You just don't
Ask
hesitate.
questions.
Ask
Yeah.
ask questions. Yes, and uh, just like what you said earlier, you are the customer, so the
Mm,
customer, yeah, it's always right, as they say. You have
yes.
all the right to ask, yeah, to clarify, and just to say no if you feel that it's not right, and
Yes.
if you
Seek
feel that,
advice.
seek advice.
Mhm.
Yes, and there are if you want to file a claim, there are agencies that you can go to, and we'll put everything in the recap.
Okay.
So yes, and we have a question from Michelle. Yes, what are the sanctions of these agencies who are doing illegal activities?
Okay. Um, so if you file it, depending on where you're filing complaint. Kung sa Hong Kong yan, if you file a complaint in Hong Kong, um, actually we did when I was with Help for Domestic Workers, actually lobbied for an increase in the penalty uh, for employment agencies that violate employment agencies regulations. No, that before the maximum penalty or fine for agencies that violate employment agencies regulation in Hong
Mhm.
Kong, yes, is only 50,000. Now it has been increased to 100,000. 100,000, 150,000, right? I think it's 100,000 Hong Kong dollars. It's still not enough because if they recruit say 10 people who pay 20,000 each, right? So bawi pa rin sila doon, but and it's very rare for the court to impose the maximum fine, but it has been increased from 50,000 to 100,000 or 150,000, I think. Um, was it 300,000? I need to check, but I think it's about that amount. Um, yeah, I need to verify that. It has been increased from 50,000.
Mhm. Okay, so thank you, Holly. I think it's quite late already, and yeah, we have a few minutes to wrap up. And but before we say goodnight, let's yeah, do practice our evening ritual. This is uh, e- the practice that we're doing in our free online course, Dare to Dream, where we it's about sharing the things that made us happy for today.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's a practice of gratitude, just to end the day
uh-huh.
happily, and yeah. So would you like to start, Holly?
Oh, three things that
That
okay.
made you happy
Well,
today.
okay, it's one is first and foremost is being able to share my knowledge and experience with all of you. um, that really makes me happy when I'm able to empower people and share my knowledge. Yeah, that's definitely number one. Number two, I think it's because I've been working on my um, take home exam, my final exam. I'm making a bit of progress. I made a bit of progress today, so that makes me very happy. Um, because it's due on the 19th, I need to do more work. Um, Another is, I guess, it's just while I'm working, I look out the window and it's really um, a really gorgeous day. I mean, the weather is really nice, blue sky, the sun was out.
Mhm.
So I guess that made me really happy. And I'm a simple person. Simple things make me happy. So those are the things that I'm grateful for today.
Yeah, thank you. It's same with me. The yeah, I'm very happy with it's a great weather today after a few days of raining. So yeah, it's nice to see the sun out, and yeah, it's a gorgeous weather. And second is we had a good day at the office. Um, One of our volunteers is leaving for next week, so we had a good lunch. And yes, of course, the third one is, of course, I'm very grateful and happy that we are able to do this for the community. And yes, just thank you so much for being our guest tonight. And yeah, I'm happy that we are able to do this
Great.
and to
Yeah.
share information, provide resources. And yeah, it's been great talking with you. And yeah, I'm sure we have covered a lot, and it was a very productive discussion.
Great. Cool.
So
Thank you.
thank you so much, Holly.
Thank
And
you.
yes,
Thanks
thank you.
everyone for listening.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And
Thank
good
you.
night. And
Good
yes,
night.
night.
Bye.